What if I told you that the most disciplined human being who ever lived was not a monk, was not a general, was not a productivity guru with a best-selling book and a morning routine checklist? What if I told you he was 135 pounds, stood 5'7", and could throw a punch so fast that film cameras running at 24 frames per second could not capture it? What if I told you that this man rebuilt himself from zero not once but multiple times? That he turned racism into rocket fuel? That he turned a career-ending injury into his greatest written work? That he looked at the version of himself that existed and decided it was not enough, and then did something about it every single day without waiting for motivation, without waiting for the right moment, without waiting for anyone's permission? His name was Bruce Lee. And today we are not talking about his movies. We are not talking about his fights. We are going inside the mind, inside the philosophy, inside the actual daily system that produced one of the most extraordinary human beings who has ever walked this earth. We are going to take his words, his ideas, his methods, and we are going to hand them to you so you can use them starting today. Because Bruce Lee did not just build himself. He left behind a blueprint. And most people have never read it. Let us start with the single most important thing Bruce Lee ever said. Not the most famous. The most important. He said this: "I am not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you are not in this world to live up to mine." Read that again. Let it land. Because in those 28 words is the entire foundation of self-discipline. Real self-discipline. Not the kind that comes from fear of what other people will think. Not the kind that comes from shame or guilt or social pressure. The kind that comes from a deep and unshakable internal standard that you set for yourself and hold yourself to regardless of whether anyone is watching, regardless of whether anyone approves, regardless of whether anyone even understands what you are doing or why. Bruce Lee understood something that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. That the moment you start living for other people's approval, you have handed the controls of your life to someone who does not care about your potential. You have made your ceiling as low as their imagination. And other people's imagination is almost always smaller than your actual capability. So the first principle of Bruce Lee's self-discipline system is this: build your standard from the inside. Decide who you are going to be. Write it down. Own it. And then hold yourself to that standard regardless of what the world around you is doing or saying or expecting. He did this literally. He wrote a document titled My Definite Chief Aim. In it, he stated exactly who he was going to become, what he was going to achieve, and by when. He signed it. He dated it. He treated his future self as a fact that had not happened yet, rather than a dream that might or might not come true. That distinction between a fact in progress and a maybe is everything. Now let us talk about the idea that changed everything for Bruce Lee. The idea that made him different from every other martial artist of his era. The idea that applies to your life right now, whether you have ever thrown a punch in your life or not. He said this: use no way as way. Have no limitation as limitation. What does that mean in practice? It means that Bruce Lee looked at every system, every method, every tradition that existed in his field and asked a single ruthless question. Does this actually work? Not does this look impressive? Not is this traditional? Not will my teacher approve? Does this actually work? And if the answer was yes, he kept it. If the answer was no, he threw it away. Without sentiment. Without attachment. Without caring whose feelings it hurt. He called this absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add what is essentially your own. This is one of the most powerful self-improvement frameworks ever articulated. And almost nobody applies it to their own life. Think about the beliefs you are carrying right now, the habits you perform every day, the routines you follow, the way you think about yourself, your potential, your limitations. How many of those things did you choose consciously after testing them against reality? And how many of them were just handed to you by your environment, your upbringing, your culture, your fears, and you accepted them without question because they were familiar? Bruce Lee spent his entire life doing an audit of himself. Constantly. Relentlessly. He kept journals not to record what happened, but to examine what he was doing and why and whether it was actually moving him toward the person he was trying to become. Start the audit. Right now. Everything you do every day, ask the question: is this working? Is this moving me forward? Is this useful? And if the honest answer is no, throw it away. No matter how comfortable it is. No matter how long you have been doing it. Discard what is useless. That is not giving up. That is precision. Bruce Lee trained every single day. Not most days. Not on the days he felt good. Every day. And the way he thought about that daily training reveals something crucial about what self-discipline actually is at its deepest level. He said this: long-term consistency beats short-term intensity. The world right now is obsessed with intensity, with extreme challenges, with 30-day transformations, with going from zero to everything in a weekend. And Bruce Lee, who was living proof of what extreme dedication could produce, was saying something almost radical. That the daily, unglamorous, undramatic showing up is more powerful than any single burst of effort. He ran every day. He did his exercises every day. He practiced his techniques every day. And he did not wait to feel like it. He did not negotiate with himself about whether today was a good day or a bad day. He had built the training into his identity so deeply that skipping it was more uncomfortable than doing it. This is the secret. Motivation is a feeling. It comes and goes. It cannot be trusted. Discipline is a decision you make in advance that removes the daily negotiation entirely. You do not ask yourself on a Tuesday morning whether you feel like running. You are a person who runs. Tuesday morning running is just what happens. The decision was already made. Bruce Lee also said this: if you always put limits on everything you do, physical or anything else, it will spread into your work and into your life. There are no limits. There are only plateaus, and you must not stay there, you must go beyond them. Plateaus. He specifically named plateaus. Because everyone hits them. The point where you have been doing the work and you stop seeing obvious progress and the temptation to coast or quit becomes overwhelming. Bruce Lee's answer was not to push harder. It was to change the angle. To approach the plateau as information rather than a verdict. The plateau is telling you something. It is telling you that your current method has reached the ceiling of what it can produce, and it is time to learn something new, add something new, challenge yourself in a direction you have not yet explored. He did this constantly. He added weight training to his martial arts when everyone told him it was wrong. He studied fencing footwork and applied it to his fighting stance. He read philosophy and applied it to his training methodology. He was always looking for the new angle that would break through the next plateau. And that restless, curious, relentless drive to keep growing is available to every single one of us. Let us talk about fear. Because Bruce Lee had a completely different relationship with fear than most people allow themselves to have. He said this: do not fear failure. Not failure, but low aim, is the crime. In great attempts it is glorious even to fail. Read that again. Not failure, but low aim, is the crime. The thing Bruce Lee was warning against is not the experience of failing. Everybody fails. Failure is just feedback. The thing he was warning against is the slow, quiet, comfortable decision to aim at something small enough that failure seems impossible. To set a goal low enough that you can always tell yourself you are making progress. To live inside a comfort zone so padded that nothing in your life ever really tests you. That, he said, is the crime. Because you are sentencing yourself to a life that never finds out what you are actually capable of. He also said this: as you think, so shall you become. This is not motivational poster language. This is a precise description of how the mind actually works. The thoughts you think repeatedly become the beliefs you hold. The beliefs you hold become the actions you take. The actions you take become the results you produce. And the results you produce become the life you live. Everything in that chain starts with a thought. Everything. Bruce Lee was extremely intentional about the thoughts he allowed to occupy his mind. His journals are full of affirmations that were not wishful thinking but deliberate programming. Statements about who he was and what he was capable of, written repeatedly, read repeatedly, until they became not just beliefs but certainties. He wrote things like, "I am the best conditioned fighter in the world." He wrote this when he was still an unknown in a small apartment in Seattle. He wrote about his future films as if they had already been made. He wrote about his influence on martial arts as if it had already happened. He was not deluding himself. He was building the mental architecture of the person he was in the process of becoming. What thoughts are you thinking repeatedly right now? Are they building the architecture of the person you want to become? Or are they reinforcing the limitations of the person you are afraid of staying? Now let us go into the specifics. The actual practices. The actual daily methods that Bruce Lee used to build himself. The first one is what we can call the brutal honest journal. Bruce Lee kept notebooks his entire adult life. Not diaries. Not gratitude lists. Brutally honest self-assessments. He would write down a technique he was working on and then write down exactly what was wrong with it. He would write down a goal and then write down the specific obstacles between him and that goal. He would write down his fears. He would write down his weaknesses. And then he would write down what he was going to do about each of them. This practice is available to you today. Get a notebook, not an app. A physical notebook. And every day, write down 3 things. 1. What am I working on and what is specifically wrong with it right now? 2. What is the gap between where I am and where I am trying to go? 3. What is one concrete action I am going to take today to close that gap? Not someday. Today. Specific. Concrete. Measurable. The second practice is what Bruce Lee called progressive overload applied to everything. In physical training, progressive overload means you consistently and deliberately make the challenge slightly harder. You add weight. You add reps. You shorten the rest period. You do not let your body adapt to a comfortable level and stay there. You keep pushing the edge forward. Bruce Lee applied this to every area of his development. His reading got harder. His philosophy got more complex. His training got more sophisticated. His standards for his own performance in film got more demanding with every project. He was always operating at the edge of his current capability and pushing that edge forward. Apply this to your life. Whatever you are working on, ask yourself honestly, am I actually being challenged right now, or am I just going through motions in a comfortable routine? If the answer is comfortable routine, you need to raise the standard. Add the weight. Increase the difficulty. Push the edge. The third practice is what we can call single-minded focus on the primary thing. Bruce Lee said this: "The successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus. Not the most talented. Not the most gifted. The average man with laser-like focus." He understood that most people have enough raw material to become extraordinary. What they lack is the ability to concentrate that raw material on one thing long enough for it to compound into something remarkable. He was obsessive about his primary focus. Everything else was evaluated by whether it served that focus or competed with it. This is brutal. It means saying no to things that are genuinely good, genuinely interesting, genuinely appealing, because they pull your attention away from the thing that matters most. What is your primary thing? Not your 7 priorities. Not your list of goals across 12 areas of life. Your one thing. The thing that, if you made relentless progress on it every single day, would change everything else. Identify it. Name it. And then protect your attention for it like it is the most valuable resource you own. Because it is. There is a concept in Bruce Lee's philosophy that is perhaps the most challenging and the most liberating thing he ever articulated. He called it emptying your cup. The story goes like this. A scholar went to visit a Zen master to ask about enlightenment. The master began pouring tea into the scholar's cup. He kept pouring after the cup was full, and tea began to spill over the sides. The scholar said, "Stop, the cup is full, no more will go in." And the master said, "You are like this cup. You are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you anything unless you first empty your cup?" Bruce Lee loved this story, and he lived it. He would deliberately seek out people who challenged his thinking. He would read books that contradicted his existing beliefs. He would train with people who exposed his weaknesses. He actively wanted to be shown where he was wrong because that was the only way to get better. Most people do the opposite. They seek out information that confirms what they already believe. They avoid situations that expose their weaknesses. They protect their existing self-image from any challenge that might require them to change. And they wonder why they stay the same. Empty your cup. Regularly. Deliberately. Seek the person who will challenge you, not the one who will validate you. Read the book that makes you uncomfortable, not the one that tells you what you already know. Walk toward the feedback that stings, not away from it. That sting is the feeling of your cup being emptied. That sting is the beginning of growth. Let us talk about the body. Because Bruce Lee's approach to his physical training carries lessons that go far beyond fitness. He said this: "The mind is like a fertile garden. It will grow anything you wish to plant, beautiful flowers or weeds. And so it is with our minds. We can grow confidence or doubt, courage or fear. What we plant must grow." And he said this: "Take things as they are. Punch when you have to punch. Kick when you have to kick." These two ideas together form the physical and mental practice that made Bruce Lee what he was. Train your mind like a garden, deliberately, intentionally, pulling out the weeds and planting what you want to grow. And when it is time to act, act completely. No hesitation. No second-guessing. No half measures. He trained his body to respond without thought, because thought takes time and time is the enemy of performance. But that automatic excellence did not come from talent. It came from repetition so deep and so intentional that the right action became the default action. This is available to you in your own field. Whatever you do, your craft, your skill, your work, the standard you want to perform at needs to be practiced so deeply that it stops being a performance and starts being who you are. The writer who writes every day until writing is just what they do. The entrepreneur who thinks strategically every day until strategic thinking is automatic. The person who chooses discipline every day until discipline stops being a choice and starts being an identity. Bruce Lee did one thing every single day that most people find remarkably simple and remarkably hard. He asked himself at the end of each day one question: did I do everything I was capable of today? Not did I do a lot. Not did I do more than average. Did I do everything I was capable of? The standard was not other people. The standard was himself. Try that question tonight. Just that question. Did I do everything I was capable of today? And answer it honestly. Because the honest answer is where your next level begins. Bruce Lee said this: "Notice that the stiffest tree is most easily cracked while the bamboo or willow survives by bending with the wind." This is perhaps the most misunderstood part of his philosophy. People see the discipline, the intensity, the ferocious training, and they think that Bruce Lee's way is about being hard, about being rigid, about forcing your will onto the world through sheer sustained pressure. But that is not what he was saying. He was saying that real strength is flexible. Real discipline knows when to push and when to bend. Real resilience is not about never being knocked down. It is about being the kind of person for whom being knocked down is just a temporary position before standing back up. He was knocked down many times. His injury in 1970 that doctors said would end his career did not end it. It redirected it. He bent. He adapted. He found another way. He came back stronger and more precise than he had been before. The wind that was supposed to break him only revealed how deep his roots went. Your setbacks are not evidence that you cannot do the thing. They are the wind. And the question is not whether the wind will come. It always comes. The question is whether you have built roots deep enough to bend without breaking. You build those roots through daily discipline, through the habit that you keep on the bad days, through the standard that you hold when nobody is watching, through the honest journal entry on the night when you fell short, through the question that you ask yourself even when you are afraid of the answer, through the willingness to empty your cup when your cup needs emptying. That is how roots grow. One day at a time. One honest moment at a time. Bruce Lee also said this, and we are going to sit with it because it is the most important thing you will hear today. If you love life, do not waste time. For time is what life is made of. Not money. Not opportunity. Not luck. Time. Time is what life is made of. Every hour you spend in comfortable mediocrity, every day you spend doing the minimum, every week you spend telling yourself you will start properly on Monday, is a piece of your life that you are not getting back. Bruce Lee was dead at 32 years old. 32 years old. And in those 32 years he created a body of work, a philosophy, and a legacy that 50 years later still teaches and still inspires and still challenges. Because he did not waste the time he had. He used it. All of it. Every day. With complete commitment to becoming the person he had decided to become. You do not know how much time you have. Nobody does. The only question that matters is what you are doing with the time you are certain of, which is now. This moment. Today. Bruce Lee built his extraordinary life out of ordinary days. Days where he got up and ran when he did not want to. Days where he wrote in his journal when he would rather have slept. Days where he trained when his body ached. Days where he read when the ideas were difficult. Days where he held his standard when lowering it would have been so much easier. Ordinary days, made extraordinary by the decision to use them fully. So here is what you take from this episode. Here is the Bruce Lee self-discipline system condensed into the actions you can start today. Write down who you are going to become. Specific, detailed, signed and dated. Not who you hope to become. Who you are becoming. Present tense. Treat it as a fact in progress. Start the audit. Everything you do, every belief you hold, ask, is this actually working? Keep what works. Throw away what does not. Without sentiment. Build the daily non-negotiable. One thing every single day that moves you toward your primary goal. Not on the days you feel like it. Every day. Make it non-negotiable. Make it part of your identity. Keep the brutal honest journal. Not a diary. An honest daily examination of the gap between who you are and who you are trying to become, and a specific plan to close that gap today. Raise the difficulty. Whatever you are doing, find the edge of your comfort zone and push it forward. Progressive overload in everything. Never let yourself adapt to easy. Empty your cup. Seek challenge, not validation. Seek the person who will show you where you are wrong. Read the book that makes you uncomfortable. Walk toward the feedback that stings. And every single night, ask the question, did I do everything I was capable of today? That is it. That is the system. It is not complicated. It never was. Bruce Lee did not have access to anything you do not have access to. He had the same 24 hours. He had the same human body with its limits and its pain and its preference for comfort. He had the same human mind with its doubts and its fears and its capacity for self-deception. What he had differently was a decision. A total, complete, non-negotiable decision to become something extraordinary. And then the daily discipline to make that decision real, one ordinary day at a time. The only question now is whether you are going to make the same decision. Be water. Do the work. Thank you for listening. If this episode hit you somewhere real, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more content built around the one thing that separates the people who want it from the people who get it. Discipline. New episode every week.